Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. This is our weekly recommend or refute episode where we each discuss a film that we watched separately during the week and kind of tell the rest of the group what we thought about it and whether we would recommend or refute it. So with me, as always, are John Garcia and Ryan King. John, do you want to kick us off and tell us what you watched this week?
Yeah, I'd love to. So this week I watched, I've kind of established a reputation, maybe not necessarily on Afterthoughts podcast, but on our previous podcast, Knights of the Underground Table, as a schlock jockey, somebody who really dives deep into the dumpsters of film and just loves that stuff, revels in it. And this week I have something that is...
You're a shit person, John.
I refute that statement, but I also recommend it.
You can't deny it's factual.
That's right. So this week I surprisingly don't have schlock to talk about. I have something that won an LA festival.
Let's wait till you finish talking about this movie to figure out whether it's schlock or not.
Why not?
Yeah.
But it won a LA Festival's Grand Jury Prize. It was a premiere at a South by Southwest. Dixon, I believe you're familiar with that based on some previous episodes.
I have been to the festival. I have not heard of this film before. But.
Yeah, and this film is 2021's Potato Dreams of America.
Potato, where's your red scarf?
I won't wear it.
What?
The red stands for all the blood that was spilt for the revolution. I won't wear your stupid communist bloodthirsty scarf.
You can't get that from me. Give it to me.
Tell me more about your mom.
My mom is my best friend.
A divorced woman with a child should be begging strangers on the street to move in with her.
Grandma, don't be dumb.
You'll hear what he said to me.
Because you're dumb.
The title itself seems absurd on the surface, but it's actually the story of a boy from the USSR who came over to the United States when his mother signs up to be a mail order bride.
Okay.
He is dealing with his homosexuality and trying to grapple with his sexual orientation while also living in his stepfather's home, who kind of has like some surprises for him. Basically, that his stepfather is sort of ultra religious. The film itself, Potato Dreams of America, the title, it refers to his name. He's called Potato through the film. And in English, that sounds really silly out there, I'm sure. But when it hits the ears in Russian, it's a pet name. It's what his mother calls him. His mother calls him Potato, which is Kartoshka. That's, like my little Kartoshka, Maya Kartoshka. It's like, okay, cool. That's
like sweetie or something
it's a little
like that.
sweetie.
Yeah.
This is what I love. It is all told through this kind of lens of film and how he's experienced American life through watching movies on pirated television stations in the USSR when like the Iron Curtain falls. And it's not done in a very serious and grounded way. And I say serious and grounded in more of like, it's not gritty. It's not a drama like A24 sort of family drama sort of thing. It opens on his mother being abused. And even from that point, the character of Potato is trying to frame that and how a film might show it. He's doing the kind of classic director's view where he's got an index and a thumb and an index and a thumb, and they're meeting in that square to like frame the violence of what he's seeing.
Okay.
But his mother's like crying out, like, get him out of here. I don't want him to be here. And from that moment, I was hooked. And Sasha decided to go in with me on this and watch this movie with me. I pitched her on the back kind of synopsis, and it was just a beautiful experience. It's the most personal kind of film, and it's kind of my favorite way that things are done. Is it's made from a place of passion where the director Wes Hurley and writer Wes Hurley, Wes Hurley has based it on his own experience and how he came to the States, and it tells his truth. So there are parts of it where characters don't really need as much buildup because you know that this is based on somebody's life, that this is a narrative story to tell you about their experience. And so you can meet these characters and know who they are immediately, how they might fold into his story and what he's experienced in his life. But the most fascinating part of it is it reminds me of kind of a Wes Anderson movie, but with less of a
Is
surgical
Bill Murray
lens.
in it?
Bill Murray is not in
Then
it.
it's not a Wes Anderson movie.
It is, yeah. It's exactly that's the main differentiator here.
Is there a Wilson in it?
There is not
one
a
of the Wilsons.
No Wilson
No.
is in this. Nobody goes, wow. But it has this kind of kitschy stage play sort of aesthetic, and this symmetry to certain scenes and asymmetry to others. Feels very intentional stylistically. And there are these moments where when characters start to tell their stories or other events are unfolding in the background, it's presented very much in a stage play style. And I say that not in like the whale stage play where everybody is business and blocking for the sake of showing you business and blocking to the back row sort of thing, but more like, for example, his babushka, his grandmother, is talking to him about serving in the Russian military. And in the background behind the window is a stylistically lit blue light over like the shadow of several men fighting with knives. They're all just silhouetted, that kind of thing. Or he'll talk about his experience with certain things in the USSR, and suddenly a curtain will appear in the back window of their house and people will come in front of it and act out certain things while he's telling you. It fluctuates between Potato as a child and Potato as a teenager in America trying to fit in and find his place with people. It also, just kind of fair warning to folks out there, uses the hard F word in a way to show you just how he was discriminated against, what kind of hurtful language was used against him. These very relatable scenes.
You're talking about the British cigarette word?
I'm talking about a bundle of sticks.
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm referencing. And that just these moments of highs and lows in his experience as a human being and being treated as an other. It follows sort of some of the beats that you would want it to and other beats that are less predictable. It's a very strange movie in how it tells its tale. Like Jesus is an actual figure in it. Like there's a real Jesus character.
I saw that on IMDb.
Okay.
The first person listed on the call sheet is Jesus Christ. I was like, oh,
Yes.
okay.
There's a poster that says, how much what would Jesus lift? I think is the quote. It has Jesus just like shredded. There's a bunch of other goofy stuff in it. It's got a dark sense of humor to it.
How much protein powder would Jesus eat, bro?
But I was truly, Sasha and I were both completely blown away with how engaging it was, how heartfelt it was. And it really emotionally moved us. Like we just fucking loved it.
Wow.
It was one of those movies where the moment I finished it, I just had to tell more people about it. I had to go and say, hey, have you seen this? Do you know about this? Is this anything that's on your radar? Especially given that the fucking Texas Senate has recently passed, or did they pass a bill? I don't fucking know. They were putting up a bill around qualifications and drag. Like it's just some shit that antagonizes.
I just get so depressed about the stupid culture war bullshit that I just stop reading.
Some Senate bill that was trumped up that basically just demonizes the LGBTQ plus community, and
we're not gonna have any gay people, folks. It's that they don't exist. We don't have any gays, folks.
We just put our heads in the sand. That's how it works. We can't breathe
It's
in
very
there.
warm down here. Come down and enjoy the sand, folks.
But it's that kind of movie that can really humanize somebody. I feel like I could show this movie to my dad and he might be perplexed by it, but he might also just connect with a human emotion on a separate level. And the style itself carries so much of what this movie is about. So yeah, Potato Dreams of America is my recommend for this week. It was fantastic. And I think Wes Hurley hopefully takes pride in what he's made. He's made a fucking goddamn great film. That's
Cool.
the highest commendation I can give to something.
It's streaming on most tech monopoly sites for $2. So
There you go.
very affordable
$2.
rental.
$2 to check it out. It's somebody's personal life story, and it's told in a very unique and stylistic way. I would recommend it.
How do you think Wes Hurley could move to a subject that isn't his own? Like, what would be that next step? Because I know sometimes I've seen things like this, and they're good because it's that passion project that's really close and dear to them, but then it's difficult to follow it up.
That's actually a really interesting question because I watched a few of the short films that Wes Hurley has done, and they seem to all explore his personal life or his sexuality. And I think that that's something he's really fixated on. And I don't know what the departure would be from a stylistic point, though. If he takes this into any other film, it's easily recognizable as his fingerprint. And it would be something that I would welcome in. It would be a campy kind of experience, science fiction-y. It feels like an extension of drag and how drag is as a medium. Just even in its most depressing moments and its bleakest moments in this movie, it still has some element of dark comedy to it, some element of humor that Wes seems to have found. And I feel like that would be carried into anything else. I can't fathom at the moment how Wes might handle subject matter. Like our previous episode, Skycrawlers talking about that kind of philosophical thing, because I think Wes comes from a different kind of oppression and a different kind of philosophical breaking point.
Yeah.
Personally. So I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm very curious myself.
Because you mentioned Wes Anderson, and he's a style, right? Very much a look and feel to his movies, but they're not personal stories of his. They're not autobiographical, so to speak. Maybe elements, a lot of directors and writers put themselves in their own movie in some way. With this one being so close to Wes Hurley's direct life, it would be interesting if he could take that style and apply it to similar subjects, but not his own life. Like, how would he do that?
One of the other short films that he made was a silent film. And it was it was basically like similar to The Little Mermaid in a way, where there was a merman who, yes, cue your Zoolander quotes, go ahead, merman. A merman who fell in love with a sailor who was apparently just like fucking around by a lake. And the merman decides to accept the offer of some undersea witch and have his body turned into a man's body. He has like legs and everything. And he just goes to a gay club and hangs out and tries to find the sailor, and ends up finding the sailor, like, who is like, oh yeah, I'm kind of enamored with you. I think that you're really enchanting, but hold on, I'm going to go and like have a relationship with these other guys. I'm going to like bang these guys in a bathroom is basically what happens. And the merman is so disheartened by it. And meets another man who is equally disheartened. And it turns out that man was an eagle at another point, like an eagle man or something. And has given up his wings to be with another man. And they end up finding love that way. And it's all done silently, all with pantomime. And it's very sentimental. It is also pornographic, but like there are these elements
I'm shocked,
of just
John. I'm shocked.
shocked and to find gambling in this place. Here you're winning, sir. But yeah, it's those. I feel like there's a few other things. Like there's a documentary that Wes has done that led to this movie being made, and I think that Wes is still just exploring his sexuality. And having spent so much of his life repressed, is exploring that liberation right now. So I'm not entirely sure how he would break free from that style. It's fascinating to think about that, though. So yeah, good question, Ryan.
That's interesting. Whenever I hear about men or women, I can only think of The Lighthouse now. That's all. Like, I don't think about The Little Mermaid or anything. It's just like the darkest place that could go.
You're fond of me, lobster. I know it. I've seen it.
Scrolling through the IMDb page, there are conservatively 7 people credited as Potato's lover, and conservatively another 7 people credited as fantasy husband. Is this like a lot of kind of like fantasy sequences of kind of him like imagining scenarios for himself that would work out in a positive way, or kind of how does that play out in the film?
So the myriad of fantasy husbands and or like partners in this particular context has to do with the epilogue of this movie. So I'll prepare all of you if you were thinking I'm going to watch Potato Dreams of America with my mom and dad. Towards the end, there is about 10 minutes of segment where he really comes into his own, has his own sexual liberation in America, and is kind of permitted to do that because he lives in Washington. That's like a little more liberal of a
state or DC?
Washington State. a little more liberal of a state and is able to express himself more openly. And that just leads to this kind of montage of once he's done with his oppression in a more religious context, and even to an extent a political context, he has to overcome in this epilogue the oppression of his cultural context. So, for instance, a lot of people fetishize him for being Russian. They say it's fascinating that he has a Russian accent. They really exoticize him. And he uses these moments with these lovers to show you how that exoticism plays into his sexual life. And so if you're very squeamish about watching other sexual scenes or the implication of sexual scenes, you're a little bit more reserved in that regard. These probably you're going to feel a little averse to, but has a solid point to his development as a human being, his understanding and ownership of who he is and how he interacts with people. And you can't stop that kind of fetishism and that exoticism. It's unfortunate, but it shows how he copes and overcomes it and uses it to empower himself.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, Potato Dreams of America. I would recommend it. I didn't know about it until I bought it randomly on Vinegar Syndrome, the same place I get my porn from. It was just one time, and I'm never going to live it down. Yeah.
It's been more than one time. But yeah, you can watch it for $2 on the tech monopoly of your choice. So check it out.
Go, everybody. I recommend it.
Ryan, what do you got?
So, looking for things to watch with my kids, going through Disney Plus, I was surprised to find Return to Oz on there because it's one of those things that I assumed Disney was embarrassed by and wouldn't put in there.
They still won't put the fucking straight story on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Put the Song of the South. We want it, everybody.
We know what we want.
Just want Disney to be honest about their bigotry. Just let everyone know how awful they are.
Tell us where Walt's frozen head is, goddammit.
That's where they keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever
Right
that
next to
real
Song of the
vault is. Yeah, the Song of the South. His
Right
head.
next to his heart.
You mentioned something about a tiger.
A lion. A cowardly lion.
And he could talk, too, like the Scarecrow and the Tin Man?
I heard of once in a lullaby.
They've all been turned to stone. Beware the Wheelers. I don't remember them.
Return to Oz is a sequel to Wizard of Oz. There are differences between the 1939 Wizard of Oz movie and the books it's based on. And this Return to Oz takes some of the things from the 1939 movie and some things from the books, and then also just makes up a bunch of shit on top of it.
Okay.
I had seen this as a kid. It's a fever dream of a memory. I think I've watched it twice as a kid. And I just want to subject my children who are now old enough to see the horrors of it and not have nightmares. Because I am fascinated in how this movie got made because it just is so terrifying version of the Wizard of Oz that I can't believe. And I was even more surprised this time because now looking at it, the production value and budget for this movie is ridiculous.
Really?
Like, and I was thinking, I was like, this isn't, in my mind as a kid, like I saw this and it was weird and horrifying, and it's told in, in quiet, dark places. People that talk about bad movies might mention this. But watching it, I was like, whoa, this is a budget that people at Disney thought this could be something. Not when I mentioned it, no one knows what the hell it is. Like, I think they thought this was going to be the sequel to The Wizard of Oz that people watched, I guess, and that it was going to be big bucks. Apparently, there was some changeover in Disney at the time, and it ended up getting more money than it was supposed to in its budget, but it still had a really high budget to begin with. The basic idea, okay, now let me set it up for you real quick.
Go for
it. The basic idea is that Dorothy has returned from Oz to her boring ass life on the farm, and she talks
this
about
set like right after the end of the
right
Wizard of Oz?
after. Yep,
Okay.
Dorothy's still a kid, Toto's still alive.
Yeah, she has CTE from that tornado.
Yeah, yes.
She's woken up from her concussion, and
Yeah, in her boring ass black and white Kansas, but it's in color in this version. All she
Oh,
talks
what?
about is Oz. Yeah, all she talks about is Oz, and no one believes her. And at some point, Annie M and Uncle Henry,
Fester?
what's his name?
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't remember. Yeah, decide they've had enough and take her to an insane asylum.
oh my god,
And that's the start of our movie, where the doctor gives her electroshock therapy.
Jesus Christ.
wow.
Holy shit.
And that's, if that's the point where you should be like, this is for kids, then this
Is this
takes
like
up
a
good
witch
chunk.
burning movie? Like,
Yeah, this is a decent chunk of the start of the movie. Is like, we don't even get to Oz. We spend a little bit of a time with everyone not buying Dorothy's story and her getting into this crazy sanitarium. She escapes in the sanitarium and some weirdness ends up in Oz, but Oz is like fucked up. And the first thing is like the yellow brick road is just like piles of bricks that have been like strewn along, and she starts to follow them, and like everything is gone, like everything is screwed up in Oz. Which that's the part where I'm like, they thought that this was going to be a good sequel, that if you're a kid and you just sat down and you're like, okay, the monkeys were scary, but like, is there more Oz, Mom? And they turned this on, and you just get affronted with like, oh God, the Munchkin village is burnt down and the bricks are strewn around the ground and no one is there. All the bright colors are gone. And then they throw these characters at you. You don't see Scarecrow. You do see Tin Man, but he's dead more or less. You don't see Scarecrow or the Cowardly Lion or whatever. You get these new characters introduced. We do see the Tin Man. He's like frozen stiff again because that's what Tin Man does. We do see the Cowardly Lion. He's turned into stone.
Oh, okay.
And we have no idea where the Scarecrow is. Yeah. And then we proceed to be chased around by these characters called Wheelers, which are, I don't even know how to describe these things. The actors are on they're like skates, and then they have like skates in their hands.
You showed us a clip before
yeah.
this. They're like the performers on Hollywood Boulevard who play Bumblebee.
Yeah.
They have wheels on their hands and legs and a face
yes,
that's
there you
human.
go. Yeah, or some kind of Cirque du Soleil thing where you're like, what's this supposed to be? Is it the person's a car? Okay. Yeah. And they have these grotesque
like David Lynch
masks
designed
on.
A car.
Yes.
Or Homer
and so they're
designed
really
a car.
Yeah. They're really freaky and immediately like freak you out as a kid. They stuck in my mind forever, and like watching it now, my kids immediately were like, no. Like sorry, like, no, that's not good. That's not right. And then they introduce, instead of the Tin Man, she gets followed around by a different metal man, TikTok, who, this is the part where I was like, whoa, the budget in this is way too
obeying
big.
the Chinese government, are they?
Yeah. Yes, amazing. The TikTok before TikToks. He's like a giant brass clock man thing, but again, not the level of the original Wizard of Oz, where it's like a dude pretending to be a robot man. Like, they built a robot man thing to actually like move around and puppet and all that. Like, this is 1985, so this is a post Star Wars world. We're actually trying to do something with our practical effects here. And then it goes on and on with other shit like that. So instead we have this like pumpkin headed guy that's like crazy puppeteered. It's pretty much like the Scarecrow, but he has a pumpkin for a head, but it's like actually just like sticks and pumpkin, but it moves around, and just all this fucking bizarre stuff. Their villain is a lady who takes off her head and has other heads, and she like switches them out, and there's like a room full of like her heads, and she's going to take Dorothy's head.
That sounds like some like Ingmar Bergman fucked up shit.
Yes.
Yeah,
and to a kid, the whole time you have to be like, this is just fucked up. This is all nightmares. Like, none of this is a good.
Yeah.
Like,
just
I don't want to go to
your
Oz
children
anymore.
watching this. Like, you're gonna have to fucking deal with this
Yeah.
tonight.
Enjoy the trauma, kids.
The part that I didn't remember was at the end when they finally get back the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man. The designs on them are just as fucked up as everything else in this movie, and are pure nightmare fuel in of themselves. And I had forgot that part. I guess in my mind, I just remembered all the weird shit in the first 3/4 of this movie. But they eventually get there, and I like the Scarecrow, and I'm like, that's wrong. Like, it is not the Scarecrow as a kid where you're kind of like, oh, I know it's a guy. It's endearing. Like, they make some kind of weird ass like he doesn't have a human face. It's like a stuffed animal scarecrow.
Oh,
He's got like a Wilson the volleyball face.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, and then
no, is Tom Hanks in this?
Yeah.
it's Tom Hanks. It's Tom Hanks. Oh God.
That's the scariest thing in this
my
movie.
boy. Welcome to Oz.
He's trying to do some kind of accent.
Yeah.
Where is he from? Outer space? What the fuck is that?
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's just like, it's such a weird movie. And then the resolution is just like the same shit. She goes back to Kansas and no one believes her anymore. And I guess her family is just like, hey, the sanitarium was bad. We won't send you there anymore. But that's the resolution, more or less. She takes care of all the shit in Oz and gets it back to good.
What a character arc.
What is the moral of the story? Like, I feel like the first Wizard of Oz has such a powerful ending to me. Like the first Wizard of Oz terrified me as a child. And then I saw it again as an adult like 5 years ago. It was like the only time I've seen it since I was like 8. And I remember hating it as a kid because it freaked me the fuck out. And then I watched it again roughly 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, this is actually a really interesting moral to this story. It's taking down religion and government and all these powerful institutions and saying, actually, these institutions that tell you how to live your life and they act like they know everything, they're just bullshit. They're a man behind a curtain trying to control you, and you need to trust in yourself and learn how to find what you believe and live out your life on your own terms. And that's a really powerful message. And it sounds like this is just fucking bullshit craziness for the sake of bullshit craziness.
Pretty much. Yeah, I don't really know if there's a lesson to be learned. At the end of it, the people of Oz that now are like, now everything's okay. Like the Emerald City's back. Everyone's back. They've taken away the power from this evil wizard. There was some gnome king. There's some other shit I didn't even understand.
Oh my.
And they go to Dorothy and they're like,
taking over the whole country.
They go to Dorothy and they're like, you should be queen. You should be Queen of Oz. We want to make you Queen of Oz. And they're all like chanting, join us, one of us, Queen of Oz.
Oh God.
And she's like, no, I have to go home. Yeah. She's like, I have to go home. I failed to mention that she doesn't bring Toto with her, by the way.
It's for the better because...
Well, she brings her chicken, and the chicken in Oz has the ability to talk. And ADR talks all the time throughout this movie.
It's like the Homeward Bound chicken.
Yeah. Which actually, even more, I thought as a kid it was just a chicken, but weirdly watching it, I was like, they mix in like chicken, practical chicken, and puppeteering chicken, and a little bit of like an animatronic chicken. And again, I was like, the budget is way too high on this bizarre nightmare fuel.
Wait, who does the chicken voice though?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
it's not Don Knotts.
It's not Don Knotts. That would have been amazing. It should have been Don Knotts. It's about that annoying.
Is the chicken like, you have to leave me here? I can talk. Do not take me back to the real world.
You got to do a Don Knotts voice when you say that, Dixon.
Yeah,
well, you have to leave me here.
I feel like that was Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Don Knotts is borderline Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, no, they go to her and she's like, no, I have to go. I can't be your queen. I have to go back to my home. And then they turn to the chicken and the chicken's like, yeah, I'm staying. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Like,
I will be your ruler.
Yeah, why would I do that?
Chicken.
Yeah. No, the resolution is Ozma, the true queen of Oz, was in a mirror all along, and then she comes out of the mirror and is queen. But the chicken stays.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah,
oh my God.
It's just as anticlimactic as the Johnny Depp Alice in Wonderland.
I will say, having seen and read some actual Frank Baum stuff, it actually is just pure fucking nonsense fantasy, and this is probably more akin to the bullshit that happens in the Oz books than the 1939 Oz movie, of just like random chaos, nonsense, weird things being described. So maybe it's more true to that than it is to the original movie. But yeah, it's so weird. It was nominated for an Academy Award. I didn't mention that at the top. I didn't know that.
Production value? Is that an Academy Award?
Yeah, for visual effects. Visual effects. It lost to Cocoon.
Okay.
I actually am like, it's a good run because the visual effects are honestly pretty good for this. It would be amazing if it had won and people had to go back and remember and think about this. But just the fact it's in the nominations list means it'll never go away. But it's on Disney Plus. I don't know why. I'm surprised that it is.
There was an Oz movie that came out like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago with James Franco and Mila Kunis that like everyone forgot immediately. And I never saw it, but
Directed
the
by
trailers
Sam
looked
Raimi.
horrible. I don't know, maybe. But I was like, it seemed like they promoted it for a little bit and then realized they was stupid and they just kind of stopped running ads and everybody kind of forgot about it and just brushed it under the rug. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was some kind of Oz movie.
It was Oz the Great and Powerful.
That's the one.
Yeah, that was
That's
it.
the
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
It's directed by Sam Raimi. I didn't see it.
Sylvester.
It's Sylvester.
It's Sylvester.
Yeah, it's my resignation of like, Sam Raimi did it. He did it for the money.
There was a Spider-Man cameo.
Fucking whatever. Yeah, there was an Oz TV show on HBO, right? Is that the same?
Oh shit! I hadn't thought about that in a long time recently, but the actress that was in that Oz TV show is in the Andor show, and I was sitting there for a while being like, how do I know who that is? And I went and I looked it up, and I was like, oh my god. Do you remember that Oz? Like to Darla, I was like, you remember that Oz show? The fucking weird ass. And I was like, Oz was played by the guy that plays Kingpin, and
Yeah, and somebody else brought that up recently. This is a tangent, obviously, but somebody brought Oz up recently and talked about how Dean Winters was in it. Dean Winters, we all know from Hellraiser 6. We all know this.
yeah, right.
Of course.
And the fucking insurance commercials where he's mayhem. Everybody knows that.
Oh,
too.
that motherfucker.
That motherfucker, yeah.
He's actually going to come back later in this episode.
Oh, all right. I'm
oh.
interested to hear about this. A little teaser there. Well, Ryan, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I got lost in
Anyway,
the fog.
we
of what the
got
fuck
lost
you're
in the
talking
nonsense.
about. Is this a recommend or a
This
refute?
is a recommend. This is totally
Oh,
recommend.
really? I
actually
did
will
not
say,
see this coming.
Out of left
Twist
field.
ending.
I do not recommend it for small children.
Says the man who just subjected his offspring to this nightmare fuel.
Do you recommend it for
we've
small
ramped up.
soldiers?
We ramped up. We watched Small Soldiers. We've watched Neverending Story. We've watched the original Oz. I've gotten through all the nightmare fuel stuff that kids normally have.
Okay.
Nice.
When do you
we've
get to
slowly lowered
Eraserhead?
into the
When does that come in?
No, I meant the stuff that like is made for kids but horrifies kids.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we watched Secret of Nim. Like
Oh,
we've hit
okay.
all the major
Rocky.
secretly horrifying. Yeah, we watched Rocky,
Skyfallers.
so yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, recommending
Okay,
it.
was not
Damn.
expecting that.
I'm going to fucking watch this. That sounds fascinating.
You really have to like just sit there and be like, what?
I'm going
What?
to.
The whole time, like it's
I'm gonna
great.
give Sasha no context. I'm just gonna turn it on.
Yes.
And be like, hey, I heard Ryan said this movie is
'Cause
good.
It's
I mean,
even,
not good, but he said it was interesting. Sorry. Let me.
it's even better now
euphemistically.
because if you have no context and you first start watching it, you might not think she'll ever go to Oz.
Mhm.
You may think like this is a modern tale where they just electroshock Oz out of her, and this is
Yeah.
where the movie continues to go. Like you don't know if you have no clue. You don't know where that movie's going.
Jesus Christ. It's
Wow.
so dark. Thanks, Disney.
Okay. Well, I'm going to close us out on a less dark and a little bit more mainstream note.
You watched a real movie.
I watched a movie that is currently playing in theaters that very much pleasantly surprised me. I went and saw John Wick: Chapter 4 and had a lot of fucking fun with it.
You're going to die. Maybe not.
Goodbye to you, my trusted friend. We've known each other since we were 9 or 10.
Who is this? The Marquis de Gramont. Challenge him to single combat. Win or lose, it's a way out.
Please pray for me. I was the black sheep of the family.
Man has to look his best when it's time to get married. Or buried.
I'm going to need a gun.
Ryan, you said you haven't seen any John Wick movies.
Nope.
John, have you seen any John Wick movies?
Yes, I've seen all three of the previous ones.
So my general take on the franchise is that like they do the absolute best action sequences of any, action franchise. It's directed by a former stuntman. All the movies are. Chad Strahelski. He's directed all of them. He was Keanu's stunt double for a while in previous movies, and you can tell it's directed by a stuntman. He's clearly focusing on the action sequences and doesn't really care about story. And that has its pros and cons. I really liked the first one where they are just kind of like the story is so stupid, right? It's like John Wick is an assassin who's out of the game, and his wife has just died, and after her death he gets a posthumous gift from her that's a dog, and like I guess she just like ordered it when she was on her deathbed, and he gets this dog and a note from her that's like, hey, you need something to love, start with this. And he starts, I rewatched the first one a few days ago, if you can't tell. And he just loves this dog. And then some like Eastern European goons that don't know who he is come in and wreck his shit and steal some stuff and kill his dog. And he gets very mad. And he goes on a murderous rampage and becomes the villain of the movie and just like murders 20, 30, 50 people just because one of them killed his dog, and he's just angry. And it's just like, it's so stupid and so over the top. And like the movie does not let on that he's actually the bad guy. I don't even know if the writers or the director of the movie even realized that Keanu is the villain of the movie and has gone so far in retribution past what has been done to him that he has committed so many evil acts and become the overt villain of the film. But the action sequences are so good. And I kind of like that stupid, Taken kind of plot line where it's like, we don't really care. We just need a reason for this guy to get mad and go on a cool killing spree. And we're going to have lots of cool action sequences. And it works really well. 2 and 3, I think, get a little too much involved in plot. And they're trying to figure out, okay, the first one made a bunch of money. How do we make this into a franchise and establish enough narrative to keep making these things? And they expand out from the first one and have all this lore around the high table of assassins. And there's this assassin currency that they use for everything. And this underground network of hotels where assassins stay, even though they seem very highly populated and they're like all over the world. And like, wait a minute, how many fucking assassins are there? Like, how is this even possible to maintain this massive network of global assassins? And it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's too much exposition, I think, in 2 and 3. And the action sequences are great, but there's not enough of them. And I like those movies, but I was a little bit disappointed with them in relation to the first one. John Wick 4 is 2 hours and 50 minutes long.
Oh my God.
And going into it, I was a bit apprehensive, like, oh no, this is going to be leaning into all this fucking lore fantasy bullshit that I don't care about, and it's not going to be focusing on the action stuff. Why else would it be that long? I was wrong. Most of this 2 hours and 50 minutes is just the best action scenes you've ever seen in your fucking life. Like, by far the best fight choreography I have ever seen. Absolutely incredible cinematography, wild stunts. Like, you can tell that Keanu is doing the vast majority of these stunts. He's doing the stunt driving. He's doing the stunt fighting. There are definitely scenes where they have to have stuntmen where he's like falling off buildings and shit, but like, it's absolutely incredible to look at. The sound was wild. I saw it in a regular Cinemark, and it was fucking shaking the theater. And I'm like, oh, I need to go see this in IMAX or Dolby Cinema or something. All of this was great. It was almost ruined completely by Bill Skarsgård's terrible French accent. He plays the villain of this movie, who is just a horrible character. Bill Skarsgård is really bad in the role, and it's a horribly written character. And anytime he was on screen, I was just like, can we fucking please move on and get back to the action? But the action sequences are so good, and they're so long. Like, the movie opens with 10 minutes of setup and then an hour-long action sequence, and then you have like a little bit of a break, and then another huge action sequence, and then the movie ends with like an hour-long action sequence, and it's fucking wild. Like, there's a scene where they're driving the wrong way on like that big roundabout in Paris, and they're doing all this crazy shit and fighting all these people. Donnie Yen is a major character in it who plays like a former friend of Keanu Reeves, who wasn't in the previous movies, but the assassin High Table has tasked him with murdering John Wick, and if he doesn't, they're going to kill his daughter. So he's like, it's kind of that, like, they write in a way to make you sympathize with the guy, right? Like, he's trying to kill the protagonist, but he's a nice guy. He's just like a professional assassin who is bound by the circumstances that he has put himself into, like, it's all kind of stupid, but their rapport is really good, and their fight sequences are incredible. Donnie Yen's character is blind, and his name is Kane, and I don't know if that is just like making fun of the fact that he carries a cane, or if that is his actual name. It's not really clear if that is the case, but he's a fucking badass. Like, just wrecks people. Clearly has been blind and for long enough where he has very good spatial recognition and can do all these crazy fight scenes. The action sequences are in all these incredible sets. Like, the first one is in this elaborate hotel that leads into this like art museum and these really cool areas. The final scene leads up to a church up a flight of like 300 stairs, and he like Wick has to keep going up the stairs and fighting new villains as they come down. I was absolutely blown away by this movie. There's a scene in a club where it's like raining inside, and they're fighting on and none of the attendees, like the dancers in the club, even notice. They're like assassins killing each other. You have to kind of divorce yourself from reality a little bit to appreciate it, but I was stunned by how well done the movie is, and the fight choreography is absolutely next level, and some of the shots they get, the cinematography is just beautiful. There's an overhead sequence. It's like a single take following John Wick through this massive building, like going through these rooms, killing all these bad guys. It feels like you're watching a video game because the camera is in the air, just like floating around and following him. And it's just mind blowing to watch. I loved it. I'm going to try to go see it again in theaters before it leaves. I was actually talking to John, like, hey, do you want to go see this tomorrow? And then I realized that we both have a conflict tomorrow that we can't go see it. But I definitely want to see it again in the theater because I feel like it's such an experience that you just can't get at home. Like, when this comes out on 4K, I'll probably buy it and watch it at home, but it's just not going to be that same experience of being in a theater on a huge screen with just massive speakers just beating the shit out of you as this movie's going on. Fucking loved it. My favorite movie of the year so far.
Damn.
Highly recommend people go see it.
That's fucking rad. That's quite a fucking recommendation.
Yeah, I did not expect to like it this much.
Wow. Yeah, like fun fact, the first John Wick is the first movie I bonded with my father-in-law over because...
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It's a very good dad movie.
Yeah, it's like not even that the violence was there, but just that my father-in-law speaks native Russian, and I've been trying to learn a little bit myself. And I know Alfie Allen was the villain in that one, at least. He was the son of the main bad guy.
Oh, he's the guy that killed his dog.
Yeah, he's the guy who killed his dog, who killed John Wick's dog. And at one point, he is arguing with his dad about who can kill John Wick, and he uses the most poor fucking form Russian. I think that this franchise is just poor form imitation of other languages.
It's directed by a stuntman.
Sure, I will allow it. Yeah, sure. But it was just one of those moments where we were both watching the same movie, and he's just like, Dad, let me kill John Wick. And he goes to say please in Russian, which I know the word for please in Russian is pожалуйста. That's how you say it. And he goes, пожалуйста. He like really leans on that. And we both just laughed at it. And I was like, did we just bond?
If the Russian is bad enough for you to recognize that it's bad, that's not good.
Exactly. So it was one of those things where I was just like, yes, thanks, John Wick 1. Your Russian was so bad, we bonded. But yeah, John Wick 4 has been one that I've been like, I'm looking forward to it. I watched 2 and 3. Yeah, they had that same kind of world building problem for me.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing a lot of chatter from other people about going to see it either in Cinema 4D or seeing it in IMAX or Dolby or that kind of stuff. I'm not sure which one I want to try for, but obviously the IMAX is slowly being phased out right now. I think Bullock isn't doing it anymore. And
yeah, I think the AMC in town still has it, but I just saw it at a Cinemark, just at one of their like larger screens that they had. It wasn't IMAX or Dolby or anything like that, and it was mind blowing. Like the sound was so good in just like a large regular theater that I'm really looking forward to checking out in a more legit theater. So it was fucking wild.
Do I need to watch John Wick?
No.
Nope. Chapter 2, Chapter 3?
Not at all.
Or even the first John Wick? I mean, no. I guess
the first John Wick is good. Like, I mean, I like all 4 of them. The first one is real solid. This 2 and 3 are like they're good enough, and then 4 is just oh my god. But even in I think in all of the movies, whenever the action stops, they have problems, and there's too much stupid exposition that doesn't make any sense, and just bad characters that don't really play out or lead anywhere. And the same is true in Chapter 4. But the action stuff is so good, and it takes up such a large percentage of the movie that I was willing to easily forgive a lot of other problems that the movie had. Really, all you need to know is that, like, in the first one, some goons kill John Wick's dog, and they're connected to this massive assassin organization that he used to be a part of, and he enacts revenge, and that angers the people at the top of this massive global assassin organization. And every respective movie is just these ultra rich globalist assassins trying to murder John Wick and him getting mad, and like the grief from his wife dying and his dog dying just perpetuating this anger that keeps him going throughout all these movies. Just like he has no end in sight. He's just like, I'm going to kill everyone. And that is his sole driving factor. And like all you need to know to watch John Wick Chapter 4 is like, these guys want to kill him, and he's mad, and his wife died, and they killed his dog. They didn't kill his wife; they killed his dog, which was his like connection to his wife at the time. And now he's angry, and he's just gonna like be the villain in all these movies, but you're gonna root for him. And like, really, none of these people are morally upright. Like, there's nobody really that you can cheer for.
Yeah.
But like, it's just like the action scenes are so good, you just don't really care about the moralism of it and who's right and who's wrong, and you're just like, fuck yeah, Keanu Reeves, go. Just keep killing.
It's the modern age Death Wish with less problems.
Yeah, it sounds like Death Wish, yeah.
Less
problematic Death Wish.
Exactly.
How much money is there in the assassin business in the world? Like, how many people need to be assassinated? And
apparently quite a lot. There's lots of rich assassins with massive estates and art collections and all of this bullshit that doesn't really make any sense at all. Like the hotel is called the Continental, which is funny to me because that sounds like a cheap breakfast that you get at a Holiday Inn, but it's like the name for this fancy assassin hotel that's like all over the world. And it's like, oh, all the assassins know about it, but like they show assassins walking up to check in, and the lobby is fucking packed, and it's these massive hotels with so many people staying there. I'm like, are all of these people assassins, or do they market themselves differently to the broader populace, but they reserve a certain amount of rooms for the assassins, and only the assassins know that? It's just, they don't really care about explaining that stuff to you. And the more they get into the lore of it, the stupider it gets.
The more it falls apart. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, our friend Jim disagrees with me on the John Wick franchise, but also really likes it. And he likes the world building stuff. And he's like, oh, 1 was decent, but 2 got really interesting when they started getting into all this world building stuff. I'm like, you're wrong. That's stupid. Like, just I don't care about any of that. Just fast forward to the action scenes. Just like, Donald Trump fast forwarding through all of the non-action scenes in Bloodsport. Just get me to the fight scenes. But yeah, I mean, apparently there are people who like that shit, but it's not for me, definitely.
Yeah. Damn. It's a good recommendation.
So, yeah, highly recommend John Wick 4. Go see it in a theater on the biggest screen you can find. Any other thoughts before we close things out?
No. I think that does it. It sounds like we've got 3 recommends, and they're all from totally different areas.
Definitely. We have a recommend for Potato Dreams of America. Did I get that right?
That is right.
A recommend, which I was shocked to hear, a recommend for Return to Oz.
Yeah.
And a recommend for John Wick, Chapter 4.
Let there be carnage, yes.
Yeah. Unclear if there are going to be future John Wick movies. We'll see how this goes, but
this
cool.
will make us $1 billion as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, they'll
make
find
something.
Amounts of money. But this is the kind of franchise that I can appreciate, that like I'm glad that it's doing well and making money, because they clearly put so much effort and care into making the scenes badass and making it a fun theatrical experience. It's like Fast and Furious and John Wick are like the 2 big movie franchises that I can stand behind at this point. Be like, look, they're stupid, the characters are dumb, but like they put so much effort into making you have a fun time at the movies and making the stuff actually look good on screen, that I can forgive a lot of flaws. So
yeah.
Fast 10 comes out in May. So
ringing endorsement for John Wick 4.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us this week for Recommend or Refute. With me, as always,
John Garcia.
And
Ryan King. Sorry, I have to go deal with my kids' nightmares of the Scarecrow.
Okay. Good luck with that, buddy.
Awesome.
And scene.
Did you say I'm Michael Dixon? Does it matter?
Oh,
You can just say I'm Michael Dixon. I'm Michael Dixon. And then you can cut it in. It's fine.
I'm Michael Dixon?
Who put a question mark on the teleprompter?
Don't read anything that's on there.
I'm Michael Dixon. I will give either you or me, whoever edits it, the option.
I'll do it. Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.